Good morning and welcome to our Negociantes Unidos virtual webinar. Our keynote speaker for today is Dr. Juan Sánchez Muñoz, University of California Chancellor. My name is Sandra Vidrio, and on behalf of the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation, we would like to thank you for joining us this morning. I want to remind you that today's presentation is being recorded and you'll be able to access it by visiting our YouTube account, and also it's being streamed live through our Facebook account. Before getting started, I would like to show you a quick tutorial on using the Zoom feature on your screen. To submit questions or comments during the presentation, please select the chat icon that appears on your screen if you're using a computer. And if you're using a mobile device or a tablet, you will need to select the More option, and then you will see the chat feature. And we're also excited to share with you that today's presentation, we will be translated into Spanish, so you have the option to tune in to listen in English or in Spanish. Estoy contenta de anunciar que nuestro seminario web de hoy tiene la opción de traducción en vivo de inglés a español, y para acceder a esta herramienta, por favor de seleccionar la opción de interpretación que aparece en su pantalla si está usando una computadora, y si está usando un teléfono o una tableta, seleccione donde dice la opción de más, y después va a mirar donde dice Language Interpretation, interpretación del lenguaje, y al seleccionar allí va a poder decidir si quiere escuchar en inglés o en español, y si decide español, asegúrese de silenciar el audio original. If you have any questions, please go ahead and submit them on the chat box and I'll be happy to help you answer them. And with that, I would like to welcome our CEO, Dora Westland, who is our president and CEO for the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation. Dora, welcome.
Thank you, Sandra. And I want to just briefly thank everyone for being here today. And of course, I'd like to welcome and thank Dr. Juan Sánchez Muñoz, Chancellor of UC Merced, for being our keynote speaker today. We have at the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation a lot of things going on, specifically helping small businesses thrive and helping them throughout this time of our shelter in place. But for more specifics and for all of our programs and services that we are moving forward during this time, I'm going to have Ms. Yeri Olivares, who's our Chief Operating Officer, who's going to talk to us about our programs and services. But welcome all of you, and thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Dora. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Negociantes Unidos breakfast meeting. First, we'd like to move forward with thanking our sponsors, which are Bank of America, Comcast, Bank of the West, Chevron, AFHL Bank San Francisco, Donna Giselle's, Wells Fargo, Tri-Counties Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and Union Bank. And of course, we would not be able to continue supporting our small businesses in our community if it wasn't for their support. So thank you so much to our sponsors. So at the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation, as Dora mentioned, we have very exciting projects coming up. We continue to assist our small businesses through the virtual technical assistance. And as a matter of fact, in partnership, we are excited to be partnering with the City of Fresno in awarding $1 million of small business grants to businesses in the City of Fresno. And in partnership with the County of Fresno, we are excited to be helping award $250,000 in grants to businesses within the County of Fresno. So we have more information coming up soon, and we will make sure to share that information with you so that if you or someone you know will benefit from these grants, please feel free to direct them our way. We are also excited to have concluded our first cohort of our Womanpreneur, Latinapreneur programs. We are currently in the process of awarding $50,000 in grants to the women to 10 women that participated in the cohorts as well. And of course, we also have our microloan program to where we are currently serving rural communities of the Central Valley with a USDA loan fund, in addition to another loan fund that we have here for businesses that are in urban areas as well. So we are continuously assisting our small business community and helping small businesses during this challenging time. So, again, if you know anybody that can benefit from the services that we offer completely at no cost, please feel free to direct them our way. And now I would like to introduce our board member, Angela Hiyama, who will be introducing our keynote speaker for today.
Thank you, Yeti, and good morning, everyone. I have the absolute pleasure of introducing Dr. Muñoz, so please bear with me. He has an incredible list of accomplishments that I'm excited to share with you today. So Dr. Juan Sánchez Muñoz is a Los Angeles native whose parents immigrated from Mexico. He has deep roots in the UC and Cal State systems and California. He earned his bachelor's in psychology from UC Santa Barbara, and prior to earning his Master of Arts in Mexican American Studies from Cal State LA, Dr. Muñoz served in the Marine Corps during the Gulf crisis in the early 90s, finishing his time as a sergeant. He was a secondary school teacher, an instructor in the California Community College system, and an adjunct faculty member at Pacific Oaks and Whittier colleges prior to earning his PhD in education at UCLA. He joined the faculty at Cal State Fullerton and served on the board of directors of several nonprofit agencies, was appointed to the Los Angeles Workforce Investment Board Youth Council, and served on both the Parks and Recreation and Substance Abuse Commissions in San Bernardino County. Dr. Muñoz served as Senior Vice President for Institutional Diversity, Equity, and Community Engagement, and Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education and Student Affairs at Texas Tech. He was most recently President of the University of Houston Downtown, where within his first year, he launched the university's largest capital campaign and also led the institution's recovery efforts after Hurricane Harvey. Dr. Muñoz serves on the board of the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities and the American Council on Education. He is married to Dr. Zenaida Aguirre Muñoz, an associate professor at the University of Houston. They have 3 sons, Juan Diego, who attends the UC Merchant Marine Academy, Cruz Santos, a freshman at Texas State University, San Marcos, and Juan Amado, high school and playing baseball in Merced. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming UC Merced Chancellor, Dr. Juan Sánchez Muñoz.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for that very kind, unfortunately lengthy introduction. I always smile when I hear some of those points, which some of them, when now that I'm an older man, I don't even remember. You just try to do the work. That's what our parents taught us, no más arrancar. And so it's a thrill to be with this group this morning and to meet some of you virtually. And I saw your CEO right before the formal remarks hug someone in preparation for this morning's meeting. It must maybe a daughter. And so there's maybe some good things that have come out of this COVID-19 and the opportunity to be with the people that we care about maybe a little bit more closely. At any rate, thank you again and good morning. It's a thrill to be here. I wish obviously it would be under different circumstances and physically there in Fresno, and I look forward to the opportunity to visit this group and meet some of you in person in Fresno. As it turns out, I go to Fresno fairly often. I go to Fresno for the airport. I go to Fresno for the food. I go to Fresno. I stop there on my way to Los Angeles. I've only been here for a month, and as you can imagine, my mother's already called me about 5 or 6 times. ¿Cuándo llegas? ¿Cuándo llegas? And so tenía que llegar el fin de semana last weekend. And so I stopped at Fresno on the way back. And so again, it's wonderful to be with this group this morning. I know I was only given about 20 minutes, but that's always relative when you give 20 minutes to the chancellor or the president of a university. So I'll do my best to restrict my comments, but of course you're always welcome to silence my microphone. I've been introduced quite a few times since I arrived in Merced, and it's always very, very kind, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness of the preparation. And so the time that was taken prepare those remarks, I want to say thank you. And my family and I are just beginning to discover this area of the state. And I heard about it from my father. My papa used to tell me when he worked out here in the fields with his brother Juan in Encarnacion. They came from El DF, they call it the Capirucha, but they're born originally in León, Guanajuato. Somos panza verdes. And you know what they say, no se raja Guanajuato. So, you know, and but my father would tell me about being up here and how hot it was, and it was not easy work. I said, what'd you do? And so he left the valley to go work in a factory in Los Angeles. I'm not sure that was much of an improvement, but the point is that he learned that, you know, there were a lot of people, and this was part of the migration to the United States from Mexico. And I'm honored to be here in UC Merced in the Central Valley, but I'm also mindful of the tremendous challenges that we face in the months and years ahead. And of course, my responsibility immediately are to sort of navigate the challenges of COVID-19 for our campus and the financial implications of that particular virus, which are stunning. They're simply staggering, you know, part of it is not to become despondent at the loss of what could have been, because we would have been facing a robust budget, a surplus of budget, a surplus of opportunity, and so much of it is now going to have to be sort of dedicated to mitigating the effects of COVID-19. And making the decisions that we make as a university going forward, we always put the health of our community and their welfare foremost. And that means that we have to maybe use some resources to keep some of what I say repeatedly is the most important asset of the institution, and that is its human capital. And at UC Merced, a substantial amount of our human capital is Latino. Okay, so and additionally, a substantial amount of our human capital at UC Merced is Latino del Valle, you know, from the Valley. And so we're committed to ensuring that we do everything that we can to support our employees, our staff, our faculty, and our community, and do so with in a way that's morally responsible and ethically justifiable. So we have about 450 students that returned to campus just this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We staggered them because primarily only 450 out of maybe just over 3,000 beds on campus. Why? Because these were students who expressed that their home circumstances may not have been the best and the most conducive to continue their education. And when you accept almost 500 students, you accept a substantial amount of risk. And you have to be cognizant of the health capacity in and around Merced, which I'll get later in my remarks, which is quite underdeveloped. And so we can't just bring 10,000 students back and they become ill, and then we unleash them on Merced and Merced County or even Fresno. You know, the demands right now in your hospital system are being overwhelmed. And so we had to be cognizant, even at the expense of the university and our revenue and resources. And that's what being a good partner is all about, is being prepared to share the sacrifice. And so we think that we have. You might know that over 50%, 55% of our student population is Latino Hispanic, 55%. And that over about 74% of our campus students, 2/3 of our campus are first in their family to go to school. First in their family. We are overwhelmingly the most diverse in the UC system. And about 64% of our students are eligible for Pell Grant, federal assistance. Okay, and so when you couple the Pell Grant as well as Cal Grant and other resources, one of the points that we have to make is how affordable higher education is. Certainly schools like Fresno State, schools like UC Merced, schools like Stanislaus State are indeed very affordable. So we are the only research university in the country, and we're here in Merced in the Valley. We're less than an hour from Fresno. We're the only UC research university in the country where 60% of our students are low income, Pell eligible, and we have a graduation rate well above 60%. That's above the national average. So you have an affordable university within an hour of your mom's pozole that is also affordable, that has a higher than average graduation rate, and we're having trouble bringing students from Fresno. I'll get to that point in a minute. So UC Merced was put here to serve the people of the Central Valley and their families. And that's what we've been doing. And we're trying to do more of it. And but to my point about the students from Fresno, we only have about 300 students currently at UC Merced from Fresno County. 300. It should be 3,000. It should be 3,000. And so, and there's a high correlation between college completion and entrepreneurialism and successful business development. I'll get to that point in a minute. Managing the campus through this pandemic presents a great deal of challenges. You know, it's like being an entrepreneur. All right. When we have a $360 million budget, almost $500 million, when you have thousands of employee payroll, benefits, insurance, facilities, supply chain issues, marketing issues, it's a city, it's an enterprise, not unlike what you do. And so we have the opportunity to lead the way in developing new approaches that we've done here at UC Merced with industry, with business. And you may have heard, and yesterday, I believe in the Fresno Bee, there was an article about UC Merced and the 2020 project. And yesterday, it was a very nice piece covered, and they had some nice quotes in it. And we just completed, it had to do with completion of the 2020 project. You're talking about a $1.3 billion undertaking to double the size of the campus in about 4 years and add 1 million plus 1.2 million square footage to the campus. And the secondary and tertiary economic impact, we're still doing the analysis, but it's probably going to turn out to be maybe all in a $5 billion economic stimulus to the region. That's not insignificant money. That's not insignificant. And that's what a national research university can bring to the region. And make no mistake, okay, that the impact of UC Merced will impact Fresno and vice versa, When our people fly in, when our conference participants fly in, they fly into Fresno Yosemite. I know the drive. Right. So this some of the new spaces will also include on campus a larger bookstore, a merchandise store, some real estate, some conference center facilities to host large events, but also some retail areas. And another opportunity is that you will hear about is what we're trying to work with here in the region with UC, with Merced College, is to talk about a healthy campaign, both in English and Spanish, Do Your Part campaign, encouraging people to be active in trying to arrest the spread of the virus. So whether it's the economic stimulus of the university or our social awareness campaigns, this is what a research institution can bring to the region. And you'll hear me talk about, we're located in Merced, okay, our obligation, nuestra obligación será mucho más grande que nomás aquí en Merced. It's in Merced County y también beyond. I'm interested in Fresno, I'm interested in Visalia, I'm interested in Madera, I'm interested in Chowchilla, I'm interested hasta the border to the north. I'm probably going to get in trouble getting into people's backyard, pero ¿sabes qué? Ni modo. That's where we barbecue. And so it's a very this partnership with Merced College is very important, and it's the kind of partnership I'd like to see Merced have with many other community colleges in the Valley, and giving our young people the opportunity to pursue their education affordably, conveniently through a community college and into a Cal State. I know Joe Castor, we've been friends for years. We serve on boards together. I know Ellen Young at Stan State. Ellen Young and I've known her for 30 years. She was my advisor when I was an assistant professor. So we have an alignment of people in positions of some academic influence across the region, and to think very differently about how we work together. Because many of you know that education is perhaps the most powerful mechanism in America for social mobility. It's interesting when I look at the metrics of college completion in Fresno County, and it's low. It's a third of what it should be. And we have too few students coming from Fresno County matriculating to completion, not participation in higher ed, completion of higher ed. That means I just don't go and I have a party because mijo or mija van a ir a la escuela And that's great. But we need to party when mijo and mija are graduating from college. That's a more important pachanga. Yes or no? We go like, okay. So UC Merced has a couple of partnerships, including the educational partnership based in Fresno Center. You know, we have a center there in Fresno on Shaw, and we work throughout the region to create pipelines for early college programs and working with K-12 schools. One of the things that I'm very committed to, and I want to put on your radar, because you might have some benefactors and corporate sponsors, but one of the things when I was a graduate student at UCLA, my friends and I, including friends who are professors at Sacramento State and elsewhere in Berkeley, we came up to the Valley as graduate students at UCLA. We came up to Region 6, Migrant Region 6, throughout Visalia, Delano, Corcoran, McFarland. No, yo los conozco todo. And we would talk directly to the migrant workers, and we created the UCLA Migrant Scholars Program. And we would bring kids from this region to live at UCLA over the summer, and we would expose them to college level content, to advisors, to academic counselors. We would work on their personal statements, so when they came back, they had their personal statement in hand. We would work with them on how to fill out the FAFSA. We would demystify and debunk some of the anxiety they have when they were filling out financial forms that said IRS. You know, that's going to make anyone nervous. And so we would say, this is what they're asking for, and this is how you get it from your parents' paycheck. My point is, you know, it was an education to come up here and to learn how low income should not be misconstrued with low ambition. Some of the most successful, dynamic people we know are people that never were afforded the opportunity to pursue advanced education. Many of them had to work right out of grammar school. Many of our amas, our apas, our abuelos, our abuelas, our tíos, our tías, okay, tenían que arrancar inmediatamente, okay? And none of us would confuse them with anything but brilliant. I tell people all the time, you want to know genius? Okay, talk to people that have very little money and somehow feed their family. It's brilliant. So we have tremendous capacity in our community that we need to harness deliberately, not just with rhetoric, but with action and demonstrable outcomes. So our partnership there in Fresno is, for me, very, very important. I'd like to start bringing cohorts. I spoke with the mayor of Stockton yesterday. You know, he's a very young mayor, very dynamic mayor. And there was just an HBO series. It was the HBO documentary on Mayor Tubbs recently. I said, that's good. I know I'm not going to get an HBO documentary. I'm happy he did. But I talked to him about bringing cohorts of students in the summer and getting them thinking very seriously about higher education. We would obviously like for them to come to UC Merced, but what we need for them is to go somewhere. And so we're also at UC Merced thinking very differently about how to ensure that our country, our regions, increasingly diverse students are successful. As I've already explained, we have a 90% of our campus are men and women of color, 90% of our population. Okay, that's fairly extraordinary with the kind of outcomes that we have. And something else that this group might know, UC Merced and UC Berkeley produce the highest number of undergraduates that go on to master's and PhD. UC Berkeley and UC Merced. I'm a Bruin. I went to UCLA, but it's not UCLA, and it's not UC San Diego, and it's not UC Irvine. It's UC Berkeley and UC Merced. So think about that. If our kids come here, they have among the highest probability of graduating affordably without life-crippling debt and going on to a master's, to an MBA, to medical school, to dental school, to law school, and then come back to Fresno, and then come back to Visalia, and then come back to Delano, and then come back to Merced and change the Valley. Okay, so one of the things that you'll hear me talk about in closing is the commitment and partnership to medical education with our joint partnership with UC San Francisco. We didn't need a pandemic to tell us that the capacity of healthcare across the Valley is not what it should be, and we're pushing. And we have half the kind of medical care and capacity that we should in the Valley. And this is something that many of you have heard Assemblyman Adam Gray champion over and over and over. We hope to increase our medical education program in partnership with UC San Francisco, both in Fresno as well as here at UC Merced. We know, this is important, we know that doctors who do their residency in certain communities have a higher probability of remaining permanently in those communities. And what we want to do is be able to give a student from Fresno that goes to Fresno City College with President Goldsmith and then transfers to UC Merced and then begins their biology, chemistry, or humanities undergraduate degree, finishes, gets admitted to the medical school, studies here, and then goes to UC, to our location down in Fresno, completes their medical education, receives a residency somewhere in Fresno or Merced or Stockton, and then decides to stay here after 5 or 6 or 7 years and raise their family here and improve the quality of life here. We need not just cardio, we need ortho, we need urologists, we need EMTs, we need a plethora of medical care across the valley, given its agricultural history and the kinds of lingering effects of that particular industry. So we need to be mindful and work together. We recently secured just under $10 million for design of our what we're referring to as our health, behavioral science, and medical education building here on campus. It's going to take about 12 million. And once we do the design, we're going to get in the dirt and we're going to start to build that facility to radically increase the capacity, not just physicians, but nurses and allied health areas. This would be a transformative legacy of our, and I don't mean that as the royal our, you do the work and we take the credit, collectively, our legacy to the Valley. So these are deep commitments to our community that UC Merced and I am obligated to, and building strong partnerships with other institutions, as I mentioned, as well as groups like this, increasing the social mobility of the Central Valley and its families, and growing the healthcare options of the Valley, and growing the pool of medical professionals and entrepreneurs in and across the Valley. We know universities do not thrive without supportive entities like your foundation, and vice versa. You need the kind of human capital we produce. And when we understand that our futures are inseparable from one another, then we think very differently about how we work together. So I hope to hear more from this group, and in the weeks and months ahead, I hope to be invited. And if there's food, that would be wonderful. Porque sabes que yo siempre llego con hambre. But these are some of the ideas and background and that help inform my contributions to the leadership of UC Merced, which the leadership of UC Merced, with all due respect to my office, doesn't reside in just a chancellor or a provost. It resides in the chancellor and the provost and the deans and the faculty and the staff and the financial aid counselor, and the leadership is also the painter and the plumber and the groundskeeper, and the leadership are also the public, because we are a public university, okay? And we have an obligation, tenemos obligación a servir. So aquí estamos a sus órdenes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Chancellor Muñoz. It was a powerful message to our Latino community, and we're very thankful and grateful to have you as one of our newest Latino leaders here in the Central Valley. So you're a blessing to our community. And I would like to check in here on the chat box if you're open to some Q&A questions. So the very first one here is, what is your partnership with the City of Merced to impact the impact to provide affordable housing and economic development in the area?
Well, right. Well, two things. So I'm not as yet. I've only been here just over a month, so I'm not really plugged into the issue of affordable housing. But I'll tell you, this is just a coincidence. But in the state of Texas, I was appointed by the governor to lead the largest state agency related to affordable housing, called the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. We managed all of the federal stimulus dollars to incentivize the construction across the state of of affordable housing, and these were high-end affordable units. Hundreds of thousands of Texans were sheltered. These were high quality, high-end granite, AC, public pool kinds of projects that were affordable. I served on that board for almost a decade as the vice chairman as well. And so I happen to know something about affordable housing at a state level, but I've not become familiar with it here in Merced as of yet. And in terms of economic stimulus, I'll tell you, those conversations, I mean, I've met with any number of people last week with the mayor. But many of those conversations, because of the pandemic and COVID, I think have been stunted a bit. They've been unfortunately artificially sort of scaled back. But we absolutely need more economic development here. If you just go north of Merced and you're driving on the 99, you see Turlock and you see all of the malls and stores and et cetera. Many people from Merced go to Turlock or Modesto to shop, which is astounding to me. And so, you know, there are things I know that are underway and being planned, but I'm not as familiar with them as I think I will be in the months ahead.
Thank you. And we have here another question by Jay Ramirez, and it says, Dr. Muñoz, welcome to the Valley. How do you see UC Merced students, professors taking advantage of passenger rail services ACE train?
I think it would be. I think it's a game changer. I wish we could take the train tomorrow. In terms of the future of Merced, because there are two actual rails that will terminate here coincidentally. The high-speed rail, right, will have a stop here, but then there's a continuation spur that would take you further north. And so this would create the ability, think about it, you could work in San Francisco, maybe Sacramento, and train in the way they do on the East Coast. People take the train to New York City from, you know, Albany, from outside of the city, millions. You could, if there are people that could take the train, especially now, what we've learned in this sort of remote environment is I don't see any retreat to the physical 9 to 5, Monday through Friday that occurred in the past. There's just going to be too much pressure for employers to be flexible. And the argument that you can't do this work from home simply doesn't have the weight and resonance that it once did, now that people have been working successfully from home, and some people turning a profit from home over the last 9 months. It's an impossible argument. But I think rail will be a game changer for the region, because if you read the San Francisco Chronicle yesterday, there was a really interesting article about how people are selling their homes in and around San Francisco and are doubling the property value in and around Lake Tahoe to just commute. They're willing to commute, and they're selling their homes, and they're offering $1 and $2 million cash value offers around Tahoe, because people are realizing I can work and live in Tahoe and work in San Francisco and not have to be there every day. So when you have the convenience of high-speed rail, where I can, if I want to shop, if I want to go to Rodeo, if I want to be in Beverly Hills, I take the train, I go shop, I take the train, and I come back home, and then I'm in the comfort of my home in Fresno or Chowchilla or Madera or Cathy's Valley on the way to Yosemite. I mean, you know, people live there. That's a dream. I mean, fires aside, it's a dream come true to have some property, 2-3 acres. So I think that the eventual availability of that train service will change will utterly change the valley and have a specific positive impact on Merced.
Thank you. And the third question here is, how can we make a bridge between Fresno Unified School District graduates and UC Merced? And this question was sent on behalf of Claudia Casares, and she also added here, I'm excited to partner with you as your trustee on the board. So thank you, Claudia, for joining us.
Oh, good. Well, good. I can think of any number of ways that we can create that bridge. I'm astounded that we have as few students as we do from Fresno Unified. And you know, there are things that we can do, and we can have embedded advisors living in Fresno that are visiting the high schools, not just for that one school district, but also the neighboring school districts. We should have programs that bring these students, as I said earlier, to our campus regularly. We should have special programs, as I said, that I did as a graduate student out of UCLA to help shepherd students to consider the UC. Obviously, we want them to come to UC Merced, but, you know, I mean, Berkeley and UCLA and Santa Barbara and San Diego and Irvine, I mean, people, you know, people come from across the world. And when I say across the world, I mean across the world. I mean well beyond Europe. I mean from you know, the Mariana Islands. I mean, people come from all over the world to be part of the UC. And make no mistake, the UC is the absolute gold standard for higher education in the world, period. The quality of excellence across the system uniformly, the distinction of UC San Francisco medically, I mean, it is just a storied institution. So I'm astounded when I learn that there are qualified, interested, eligible, and admissible students from the region that want to go somewhere else. And I'll just say this. So here's what I'm committing to do. When the circumstances arise, I will personally go to every high school in Fresno Unified, and I'll make the case I'm making with you right now. Okay? That's one way. Then I will take the people from enrollment and admission, and I'll call them out in front of everybody and say, and they're responsible for making sure you get here. And if they fail in their responsibility, then send me an email. I'm the only UC chancellor que tiene apellido español.
Yes. Thank you. And this is a great transition into one of a question that has been asked throughout the chat box, and it's how can organizations, and this is from Alondra Williams Vasquez, how can organizations like mine, Community Vision, be of assistance to the college? We're a CDFI, and I would be happy to begin talks on how we can support the college and increase education in the Valley. And there was also another question from a local business owner in Chilchilla, and his question was, what outreach programs are available and how can I help? So there's support of our community and helping our future leaders at UC Merced.
Well, if people send me an email, it's Chancellor Muñoz at ucmerced.edu. You know, my dad used to always make me like accentuate the ñ, Muñoz, like that. And so it's Chancellor Muñoz at ucmerced.edu. And if you send me an email and tell me some of these organizations you're mentioning, unfortunately, I'm not very familiar with the scope of their services, but if something is sent to me, I can route it to the right person and ask them to follow up. In most cases, there's something that we can do. In some cases, it just doesn't lend itself in the way we might hope, but this is a public university, and I make that point all the time. It's a public research university. It has very high ambitions, but it's a public research university. And the public, it's the public support that has endowed it being here in Merced, not too far from Fresno. And so people on our campus need to remember the mission of a public university. And so I'm here to remind them. We serve the public.
Thank you, Dr. Muñoz. I think that concludes our Q&A for the time being. My name is Norberto Felix. I'm part of the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation. So once again, I'd just like to say thank you. I think I speak for everybody on this call and say during the current times, just because we can't be in in-person meetings, that we still like to be informed. And I'm sure you'll find out, if you don't already know, that you know, just because we're from Fresno or Madera, that we also support our surrounding communities, our little towns, you know, and we might be cities and towns, but we're one Central Valley. So thank you for that. And I'm just, you know, excited for what the future holds for UC Merced. So once again, thank you.
Thank you, Norberto.
And I think now we're going to have a few words from Michael Pina, who is a president of Central Valley Scholars. And the floor is yours, Michael Pina.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation for giving me the space to share a little bit about our organization. You know, in the realm of education and about making our students from the Central Valley have access to education, I'd like to introduce our organization, Central Valley Scholars, which is actually led by current Central Valley students. So we are all full-time students at different universities across the nation, and we're all from the Central Valley, volunteering our time to provide resources for Central Valley students for a lot of what was talked about today, which is getting access to higher education. And so within that, you know, some of the work that we've done is this summer we held a health and wellness research opportunity. You know, there was a discussion today about really the need of doctors and people in STEM within our communities to come back and support our communities. And so we had that research program. Right now, we're actually having a mentorship program where we're directly assisting students across the Central Valley virtually with their college applications and providing them counselors are going to help them with FAFSA, DREAM Act, applying to the UCs, applying to Ivies, and applying for scholarships. And we're also hosting a whole bunch of webinars throughout the duration of this year as well, just talking about the college application process. And something about our organization, which is a little bit different from what I've seen in the realm of education, is we really take a holistic approach and we keep in mind our community, accessibility, and environmental responsibility. And like, what do these things mean? And so like our community, it's things as far as community, when we talk about being holistic and like trying to outreach to students, it's like providing the resources like thereof. And like for me, thinking of the workshops we had, it's like we had a workshop in Mendota where I would directly knock on doors and be talking to parents and be telling them, why college is an opportunity for their students. Or even in providing the workshop, a lot of the students in our areas are undocumented and have to work in order to not just feed themselves, but feed their families. And so we would make sure to pay them in order for them to come to our workshop and learn about college. And so, yeah, you can learn more about our organization and some of the services we offer at centralvalleyscholars.org. And I can also link the website in my personal email. Always happy to connect in the chat as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I think we're going to transition to the next part of our call, which is the networking. Yes, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry about that. I want to have some time to thank our renewal members and our new members for joining the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation. We'll start off with our renewal members. So thank you, Deloitte, Elbow Room, Farmers Insurance, Fresno First Bank, Nuvera Juice Bar, Price Page and Company, Rodriguez Real Estate Investment and Development, and Small Business Administration. So thank you for our renewal members. And our new members joining the foundation is Five Stones Open Door, Cookies Retail, Dark Horse Intelligence Inc., Neo Power Tech LLC, and Regal Real Estate Company. So thank you for joining our foundation. And then we'll move on to our segment where this is our networking session. It's 10 minutes. We're going to be breaking out into groups. Each participant will have an opportunity to introduce themselves and share about their businesses, products, or services. So please enable your video option. And then after the 10 minutes, we'll be joined back in our main room to hear our closing remarks.
Thank you, Norberto. And I will be placing 4 guests per room. And so like Norberto said, it's a virtual opportunity to connect and just get to know one another. And you have the option to opt out if you wish to not participate. So I will be starting the breakout rooms, and those that would like to participate, please participate. Thank you. I hope everyone had a great time connecting during the networking session. Please give us a thumbs up if you're able to make a connection with someone new. I know during these new times that we're going through, you know, we're trying to keep engaged still with our community, with our members, and supporting one another in areas that we can. So thank you for those. Thank you for participating, and a big thank you to everyone that joined us for today's webinar. In the chat, you will see the contact information for Cory Lucero, who is head of government at UC Merced. And if you have any question that perhaps wasn't able to get answered during the webinar today, please feel free to connect with her to continue the conversation. And with that, I would like to share with you, as you can see on the screen, we have here some information on our upcoming webinars with the foundation. And so tomorrow at 11 a.m., we will be hosting a webinar in partnership with Creative Rocket Marketing, talking about 5 tools that you can use to promote your business. And this presentation will be in Spanish, but we will have the live interpretation in English. And I would also like to share with you that we will be having on the 17th of September, we will be having a webinar talking about cybersecurity. So you are welcome to register as well. And please feel free to visit our website at fresnoahf.org/events. And we will be keeping you posted with more exciting webinars in the upcoming weeks. And with that being said, this is the end of our webinar for today. You're welcome to stick around to continue chatting and conversating, and I'll be ending the recording, and then you can catch a review by visiting our website or following us on our social platforms where our presentation is currently being live streamed. So thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar. Have a beautiful day.